Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Scott Golyardi, drummer for the band Offside and Force Majeure. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated Crew? Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Scott, the drummer for Offside, Force Majeure. Did I say that correctly?
Force Majeure.
There you go. My tongue, I've learned the R's are really hard for me. My friend from Quebec this weekend was like, you could just cheat it. I was like, that's lame.
You can. Yeah, for sure.
Force Majeure. Anyway, I'll work on that. We're here in the jam space. We're chilling.
Studio 440.
That's it. Come fight us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for joining me on a lovely Tuesday evening. We're having full strength coffee, so I hope you didn't have plans early in the morning. But how are you doing? I know you were not feeling well this past weekend. Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I had this cold that just hit me out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had plans for Halloween like everyone, you know. Supposed to record and supposed to go to a Halloween party. No. The only party I went to is me and Netflix. And
Yeah.
It happens, you know what I mean? It is what it is, but I'm feeling pretty good now, and I'm glad that we're doing this now, and been looking forward to this since we met, you know?
So long ago at, what was that show that we were at? Was it Prowl? I think it was Prowl.
It was Prowl, and then we touched base again, like another show, and then I think it was Drain. That's where, like, okay, Grayson, let's meet up.
Let's do it.
You know, I love chatting up, and I haven't done many podcasts. I've done another one. I actually forgot the name, and it's a fun experience. I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and it's really cool to have like a podcast that's like intertwined with hardcore and music, and you know, I've seen all your guests, so every time we meet, you know, we're always like chattering, and then
Yeah.
I remember at the Drain show, it's like our chatter's like, okay, no, I'll definitely be on your show. This is good.
We should get this.
This is good.
We should get this on the record. Yeah, I think that week I had actually released Hoyas, and so that was like a really exciting week because, you know, Madball's like a major influence for a lot of us. So
he's quite a character too.
He is. He's crazy, and I loved being able to talk to him. Yeah,
I really love his positivity. Like he lost a lot of weight and always putting like a positive message out, and like,
yeah,
you know, and yeah, it's definitely a guy I look up to. You know? People figureheads like that in the scene.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what I respect about some of, like, I don't like saying older heads, but you know, some of the OGs is like everything they do comes from like a PMA, that positive mental attitude. And I feel like nowadays a lot of bands don't do that. Like, it's just trying to be kind of hard, or, you know, just being heavy and shit like that. But
yeah, let's you know, I got into a lot of punk rock and hardcore for like the community vibe, you know. And if like you have a me, myself, and I attitude, it's like, well, what are you telling the younger generation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For people like Hoya, you know, they're always spreading this like, oh, we got to stick together, you know, go see a show, go that, and, you know, and they're right, you know.
it's like, I'm a big fan of Scott Vogel too. I love that he's always like at shows, social media, wherever you see him talking, he's all about like the scene and go to shows and be there for each other, and like it's cool. There's some people I'll say, like I think it was Life's Question open for Drain, and they were talking a lot about it, and even Sammy from Drain, that's like a big part of who he is. He's like a giant golden retriever, so he just like bleeds positivity. So it is fun to see bands like that are like young, doing their thing and making it happen in like a positive way. But we'll talk more about hardcore. We will talk also about punk, because I know that you play in a punk band, you produce punk. So that's going to be fun. But let's talk about coffee first. I'll talk about what we're drinking.
Yes.
Because this is special. It's a special day. This is from St Henri Roasting. It's their Wilton Benitez. It is a super small micro lot, but one of the most interesting coffees I've had recently. It tastes like guava, cherry, and passion fruit. It's a bit wild. What do you think about it?
As a guy that doesn't know anything about coffee, it's absolutely delicious, and I want more. And
That's what I like to hear.
It's absolutely delicious. There's no cream. There's no milk. It doesn't even need it. Like, I'm blown away.
I brewed this almost about 40 minutes ago, I think, and kept it in my my vacuum thermos. It still tastes amazing.
I mean, even at a mild temperature, it's great. You know,
Yeah.
No, Grayson, you're giving me my coffee education, so I'm at the right place for this. You know?
That's it, because there's some education that I'm kind of hoping to get later in the conversation, maybe on some things punk. I'm a little bit, I'm not as well versed into the punk scene, especially like I know that bands that you've worked with, like Béton Armé, and you play in, I can't pronounce it. Force
Majeure.
Force Majeure.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like skinhead punk.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe some people still have like a weird perception of what skinhead means, and hopefully we can, maybe dispel some of the
of course,
the bad images of it. But I'm so happy that I'm giving you this coffee experience now. Hopefully it's like the awakening. So when people like 10 years from now, they'll be like, what was that life-changing cup of coffee? And you talk about Wilton Benitez and being on Beans and Breakdowns.
it's delicious.
When you're on, some other coffee hardcore podcast.
I'm sold.
Like Punk Latte. I think that's
Punk Latte.
There's another one from Quebec called Punk Latte. Maybe you'll go on that one day.
Are you for real? Yeah.
No, I'm 100% for real.
Punk Latte. It's
Yeah, it's a podcast. It's in French though.
Okay.
So I haven't met those dudes. I think it's just one dude now, but when they started, it was 3 guys doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to listen to the episodes, but I don't speak French.
Do you understand a bit French since you've been here?
Yes, I do. I understand. I can read quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't speak it well. And when it's like very, very fast, especially like outside the Montreal area, when it's like more like the Quebec accent or surrounding area, then it gets a bit dicey for me. But I can order. I can check out at the grocery store, the basics.
That's the beauty about Montreal. A lot of my friends, will start a sentence in French, end it in English. If I'm angry, I want to throw a swear word, I'll throw them in French because they're a little more, they hit more. That's the really beauty about Montreal. I really cherish the bilingualism of it here,
That's something that makes me not want to leave, honestly, is like how that plays into the culture. Like a lot of the European influence with the North American kind of Canadian influence, but it makes something very unique in its own. Plus, it's cool to be like when you go see your family in the States and you can say things in French and they're like, oh, you know so much French. It's like, oui, bonjour.
I'm pro-language. I love, my parents are Persian.
Mm-hmm.
So they came here after the Islamic Revolution. They didn't know much French or English when they came in. But, I learned Farsi through them. And now I know 3 languages, it's cool. Like most of my friends only knew one. And the second one, it was kind of like broken.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say a Quebecer, but that doesn't speak well English. And then like an English Montreal that doesn't speak well French. I've always kind of been like, I dialed all of them in like 10 on 10. I think it was just kind of the right place at the right time, the story of my life and stuff. I always push language, like just kind of like learn if you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It just means that you can communicate with more people, and that's cool. Like you'll learn about somebody else if you can speak their language.
It opens up also like the perception of like cultures. And there's always a way of thinking like this, like that. How does a Persian view like I'd say North American English,
right?
Or vice versa, or like the food and then the expressions, and it's It's great.
Have you tried the Persian coffee? Is that kind of what you grew up drinking or anything do they do the sand coffee there?
We have some. Well, it's mostly tea.
Okay.
Persians are mostly into tea, not coffee. We call it chai.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I grew up mostly on. Well, I've seen my mom, and my dad. You know, coffee. No, I don't like. No, I haven't seen much. Like, even if you go to a restaurant, it's tea. You know.
Yeah.
Kind of a Middle Eastern thing. Again, maybe I don't know shit about coffee, so
I know like there's a big thing like Turkish coffee where it's like this specific maker and they put it in very, very hot sand.
Okay.
And then what it does is it percolates the heat, boils the water up and percolates the coffee in this kind of little cup thing. Is like very, very finely ground coffee. It almost tastes like mud or looks like mud.
Okay.
And then they do it and mix it with like some like sweetened condensed milk or something like that.
Yes,
or
yes,
like a cream.
yes. You've had that?
Yeah, actually, there's a cafe. I think it's called Cafe Tata. Cafe Tate. Is it Tata? I think it's on Rochelle.
Okay.
In the plateau, it's a Turkish cafe. But they do normal like North American style coffee, not normal coffee. They do North American style coffee, and then they do, because Turkish coffee has been around much longer than North American coffee. So I don't know how popular it is outside of Turkey in that region, but I do recall some like other. I think I talked to somebody that had lived in like either Iraq or Afghanistan that had something similar, and they do it in Egypt as well, like that.
That's interesting.
Which is a bit far, I think, more North African. So
I'll definitely check it out.
You should try it. It's definitely not my favorite thing that I've ever had. It's a bit too oily.
Okay.
But some people love it. So one of my friends was like, you need to get a Turkish coffee maker. I was like, no, absolutely not. So to each their own. I'm definitely more of like a basic pour over kind of person.
Do you... When you have coffee, like, you know, like I would say I'm more of a general boring coffee guy with my Tim Hortons. Do you add anything, or you just go straight for what it is? Like,
if I'm doing like filter coffee, like a nice like cafe filtre, I will not add anything unless it's Tim Hortons, and then I'll get a double. Okay. Because I can't drink that black. But for like a latte, oat milk all day, every single day. If it's got milk in it, it's oat. Let's talk a bit about hardcore, about your journey as a musician. How long have you been playing drums?
Good question. Well, forever, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm 38. I guess, you know, about 12 years old. Mm-hmm. Kind of really... like my introduction to drums was probably in the first grade in music school, but I never got picked to play drums. I was always picked to play there's always a better drummer than you.
Yeah.
And, you know, asking for your parents for a drum set, you know, when you're a kid, it's not the ideal gift. It makes noise. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But just fast forward, like, you know, about once I was 14, I was pretty deep. Like, I was hooked, you know.
Okay.
I'd come home, school would finish 2:30. We'd have our punk band practice 4 or 5 days a week, you know.
So you're playing punk at 14 already?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I tried to get into sports, like, before, like football or soccer or hockey. But, again, I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, so besides soccer, you know. But now I remember one day I tried out for a local football team, and then... I didn't get picked, and then that bus ride from home, I was like, okay, fuck this jock shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push music, like, you know what I mean? You know, so since 14, I just pretty much been constant. Like, so I'm 38, so it's been like 25 years, just like playing at punk bands, you know.
Who was the drummer that you first saw that was like, I want to be like that?
The drummer that I saw that made me think it's doable was Trey Cool from Green Day.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was like, because back when I was in first, second grade, the big bands were Metallica, Guns N' Roses. I remember listening to Master of Puppets in first grade, and I didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
My musical sense wasn't quite there. You know, it wasn't quite there. But by the time I got to the fourth grade, and with the explosion of punk,
Yeah.
and Nevermind, and you know, when Green Day came out, it was just so. It's like I understood the melodies. It's like I understood, like, oh, okay, this is a drum pattern. This is. It just. Well, there's a lot of things around it too. You know, it's the same thing where like when the Beatles came out and they introduced kind of like, I guess, pop in a sense.
Yeah.
Or like it's catchy, you know? So listen to Master Puppets, you know, when you're 10 years old, you don't get it. You know? It's like, okay, like, but so then a lot of it was with like music videos. So when Green Day exploded, that was like my band. And I would see Trey Cool play and I'm like, you know what? I could do that. I could do that. He's like this and just kind of like this Ramones-y pattern. I didn't even know the Ramones too, so you know. And then it just kind of like as I grew, let's say, like diving into the punk, you know, another band, let's say, was like No Effects, you know, like Eric Sandin with the double kick, you know. I spent 2 years to learn it. I remember 2 years to get it nice and clean. Do that, do that, do that, do that. It's definitely a big influence on that.
Well, so how did you move from playing like Green Day, doing that like Bay Area style punk, into getting into like the more skinhead? And when we say skinhead, we're not talking about like American History X style Edward Norton like racist skinheads, because that's not what skinhead really is. Like, we're talking about like anti-racist, anti-fascist skinheads. So how did you kind of get into that? And I guess, yeah, that's like the big thing, because you're the first person I've had on the podcast that has been affiliated of any kind with a band that claims to be like oi or skinhead punk or anything like that.
My journey basically started when I joined the band Hold a Grudge.
Okay.
In 2007 or 6 or so. They've been around 5 years before that, but they were kind of Warzone type of band, you know?
Right.
Warzone, 7 Seconds with some oi, and they kind of introduced me to really oi music and stuff like that. And next thing you know, I was just like, I got into the subculture with friends and then starting bands. And one of my first oi bands was a band called Shock Collars. Lasted like 2-3 years, but I had to relearn how to drum because oi basically, like, it's kind of like it's kind of rock and roll in the drum sense. So I grew up playing like fast punk and
like a D-beat style,
and then like kind of that Bay Area style, and then but once I got into the subculture, I'm like, I need to relearn how to play drums.
Right.
Kind of that classic Coxpower drum beat, you know, just kind of like closed hi-hat and play it slow. I was always playing fast. I was always in these fast bands. You know, I was always known to be a fast drum player. Like Propaganda was one of my bands, you know. I had a punk band called Subsistence, you know. We're kind of like a Propaganda type of band, so it was just playing fast, you know. Hold Our Grudge was kind of fast, but it was a little slower, you know, like kind of that Chromax D-beat type of drum style.
Yeah.
So once I got into oi, I had to learn how to play like a rock drummer,
right?
You know. But one thing that was good with it is that I'm kind of known, even like with Force Majeure that I'm playing now, it's like the fast hi-hat. And I have to credit that to Trey Cool.
Yeah, that's a punk thing.
That's a punk thing.
Yeah.
Like I got it off him, and then I just kind of always had that in my, like up my sleeve, you know? Kind of that Marky Ramone type of like 4/4, like type of thing.
That's such a, yeah, that's all my friends that play punk or come from like a punk background. Even like, I know, you know, Days of Rage as well. So that style of like playing is very New York hardcore, but the drumming is very punk influence.
Yeah.
So even when I was jamming with them for a bit and I couldn't do the doubled like the eighth note hi-hats. Like I was trying to just hit like the boop ba 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 where you hit with the snare. And they're like, can you double it up? And I was struggling, man. So yeah, you know your punk drummers when they can just like crank the hi-hats out. It's crazy.
It's that double, it's you know, you gotta give Marky Ramone like credit, you know. He'll do like, you watch old Ramone set, and then Ramone's always played faster live too, so an hour of like it's like, you know, it's I meet a lot of drummers and like they're like, man, I can't do it. It's just a wrist breaker. And you know, if you do it for like 20 years, it's a little easier, I guess. You know, you got the muscle memory and all that stuff, you know. But like I say, Oi drumming is just kind of like a rendition of like rock and roll, bit of punk type of like aggression too, but kind of stripped down too, you know. It's like you don't really hear like complicated stuff when he, you know, it's really like
it's a groove. It's like it's very groovy.
It's a groove, and there's actually something to like when you listen to like an Oi record. Let's say you listen to like Last Resort or something like that, and you hear the drums, they sound sloppy as fuck, but it actually gives it a charm. You know what I mean?
It makes you want to dance a little. It's kind of weird,
you know. So like, let's say when you get into Oi, and then sometimes you're like, that drummer is not that good, but it adds to the style, and it's the only style of music where like a kind of so-so drummer, like it makes everything pop. It like you hear on a recording, gives it that little old school effect. I don't know how to say it, you know? And that's the thing. Let's say I had to relearn how to drum, so it's like being a punk drummer, you know, kind of like Lucky Lair from Circle Jerks and all that, those fast rolls, like Josh Freese. I was influenced by all these barrier drummers. I couldn't do that in Oi, so I had to like, I need to do a dumb roll, like da 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 do do do, like that's perfect,
right?
You know, it's there's this simplicity to Oi music that you have to kind of, you know, it's more guitar driven and just this basic melody and kind of stripped down and yeah. But with Force Majeure, like we don't really follow that kind of like what I just said. Like we're actually three pretty good musicians, and like I go with that band, you know. It's like you know, kind of see it like I don't mind doing a bit of like it's still oi, like, you know, basic, but there's always like you know, Carl, he's a amazing guitar player. Right. Martin from the Prowlers, probably one of the best punk bass players in Montreal.
Right.
And you know, just if you hear our stuff, you see, okay, they're not just playing like simple. It's like it's not a little proggy, but I guess just a little proggy. You know what I mean? But you know, a very famous band. Let's say it's kind of like one of our main influences. It's the Templars. You know what I mean? With the kind of the way the guitars are written, and you know, when you listen to kind of gives you this you know, bands like Templars, Slade. You know what I mean? This more like a guitar focused, funky, you know, type of vibe. I mean, just listen. It's hard to kind of describe it, but just listen to the band, and you'll see for yourself. You know.
Well, like, so playing with Force Majeure, and then going to something like Offside, that is very much New York hardcore. I mean, I feel like those two genres, not to say they don't have a lot in common, but they don't have a lot in common, honestly, like content-wise, and, well, maybe not. Anyway, the sound is just very different. The scene is very different, I think. Like, there is some crossover for people who are a bit more, like, open-minded, I think. But, like, you find your New York hardcore kids or your hardcore kids, and then you find your Oi punks. So how... like, what kind of major things do you have to adjust going from one scene to the other? Like, do you feel the connection between the two? Is that why you play in both bands? Or how? I mean, it's I think it's a bit uncommon.
Yeah, I mean, even growing up, I've always kind of been in between tribes.
Yeah.
You know, going to punk shows, go see an oi show, go see a hardcore show. And then, you know, a lot of skinheads are into hardcore too, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I found out, like, not pretty quickly, but let's say, I'm 38 now, but let's say in the last 10 years that the drum is an instrument of character. Mm-hmm. It's what kind of character you want to portray, you know? What kind of, like, you're doing the groove, so it's like, what kind of car are you driving? What kind of, like, how you set the tone, you know? And a lot of, like, my favorite drummers, like, let's say, like, Vinnie Paul from Pantera,
Yep.
Tommy Lee, like, they set a character and a groove. Mm-hmm. So I learned that, and so when I play with Force Majeure, I get into this type of thing. And then with Offside, well, okay, it's my Mackie side. Mm-hmm. You know, he's one of my favorite drummers, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Mackie, and then just, like, what my favorite genres of hardcore are, like, we'll get into that, but just I guess, you know, once you go into all the tribes and you just kind of, like, you just listen, you create your own thing.
Right.
Just create your own, like, identity within the sound, you know?
I love what you said about the car. I love the car analogy. Like, what kind of car are you going to drive? Because, like, the car for the hardcore band is maybe not the same for the other band. You know, I mean, I play in two different types of bands I play drums for. One is very mathcore, metalcore oriented, and I don't play the same as I do with my post-hardcore band. I mean, those are very different characters. Even, like, the whole attitude and aesthetic of the bands are very different. So adjusting to those two kind of differences and kind of making your character for each one. I love that idea of making the drum a character. Like how you hit it for each band and how you do your fills or your grooves. It's really cool.
Like, all in all, like, as a musician, you gotta kind of be a sponge.
Yep.
You know, you listen to a band, you see a band. A lot of times I'll look at drummers and I'm like, okay, I can't do that. I can't do that. That I could do.
Yeah.
That I could do, and I could kind of make it my own. This is what I always tell drummers. Play what you think is going to sound good with you. Mm-hmm. Even if it's complicated or simple, no one drums the same, you know? But even if you see a drummer that plays really simple, but it's like, that's who they are, and it's coming out genuine. Mm-hmm. It fits the band, and it's like, wow, you know?
Yeah. Fitting the band is a big part too. If you're not playing to the songs, then it's not going to sound great, honestly. Like, if you're not playing what the song needs.
Yeah.
So
it's a lifetime to, you know. I'm still 30, I'm still playing music, and I'm still trying to find like, I'm in the zone.
Right.
But there's always, like, that other discovery, and then the bands that you're with, you're writing these songs, and these songs are better songs than what you had 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then it's quite the responsibility too. Yeah. You know, being the drummer and stuff like that, you know. And
I was at a live podcast on Saturday night. I went and saw Vox and Hops. They had two guests. It was Pascal and Seb, who is the vocalist from Necrotic Mutation.
Okay.
Which I think is like the Quebec version of Obituary. I love that band.
Okay.
But Pascal, he's a conductor and he's classically trained, but also does vocals and archetype. But they did this analogy of the drummer being the conductor of the band.
Yeah.
Because what does the conductor do? He sets the tempo of the song. He basically directs the dynamics of the song. And so what does the drummer do? Well, if you're a good drummer, you set the tempo and you keep it steady. And then you kind of adjust the dynamics and the hits to lead the path of the song. So you're absolutely right. The drummer... Honestly, I think the drummer and the vocalist make most bands. Like, that's what is one of the most characteristic kind of changing entities in the band.
You're absolutely right. And you notice it more when, like, bands do reunions. Mm-hmm. Or, like, bands, like, let's say a band like Megadeth.
Yeah.
Like, I always loved, like, the drummers they had, like Nick Menza and Gar Samuelson. Those two, I still listen to, like, old Megadeth records. Mm-hmm. And it's in my style. It's in my, like, just little subtle things. But when I see like Megadeth live now, they have a really good drummer, but Wake Up Dead doesn't sound the same.
Right.
It's missing that, like, those songs out of Rust in Peace, the way Nick Menza played, it's like, no, it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's not the same. Like, even Guns N' Roses, people are paying $200 a ticket, and like, you'll see in a lot of the YouTube comments, it's like, hey man, bring back Adler. No one can play Sweet Child of Mine like Adler. And it's true. You look at Guns N' Roses, you listen to the drums, you're like, Welcome to Jungle just doesn't sound the same. You know what I mean? It's just, again, character.
Yeah, it's all about character.
You know?
Well, let's talk a bit about Offside. I love Offside.
Thank you.
I love New York hardcore. I know that it's kind of like a blend between New York and New Jersey. But even like all the way to the artwork, it's like one of my favorite things in Montreal because it's so tough looking. Which, I mean, you're like one of the nicest dudes in the scene, but like, go to right now. Just go to Bandcamp, go to Offside's Bandcamp, and look at their shit. It's fucking awesome. You guys have a new EP coming out.
Yes, it's finished. We're waiting for the artwork.
Okay. And, is it gonna look hard?
Yes. We have Mr. John Mayo drawing it.
Dope.
So everyone familiar with their work knows what to expect. You know.
Yeah. John Mayo did Heavy Steps from Comeback Kid. Yeah. He did some of their merch. Deadbolt he's done, just to name some local but
he's done a whole bunch of really cool stuff. He's done our last hoodie, our last t-shirt. We're just waiting for him to do the artwork, you know, and actually I'm not gonna name drop names, but we had the artwork done already, but it's funny because I did the artwork before actually recording the album, and then once I listened to the EP, I was kind of like, I looked at the album artwork and I was like, this does not match.
Right.
So, you know, I showed it to Mayo. I'm like, hey, what do you think? You know, I sent them like secretly, hey, here's the new shit. What do you think? And does it match? He's like, Scott, you're right. Hopefully we're going to be dropping it like 2023. We're going to put out 2 songs before. Okay. Do a little promo tape type of thing.
Yeah.
And no, we were working on it for like, since COVID, I guess, you know. Well, we have a tendency of losing bass players.
Right.
Like right now, GF is our 5th bass player.
Oh my God.
So, you know, no, I think this is the record. We've played some of the songs live too. We've been getting good reactions. I think honestly now we've been a band since 2015, but even my friends, they're like, okay, now you're in the zone. Sometimes band takes a little longer to find their zone.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you know, but I think now we're kind of like,
I've seen it takes 5 to 10 years is what I see. A lot of bands, it takes about 10 years for them to hit like, they get like that big like album and it shows like their songwriting has matured. But I mean, I think that's for maybe younger bands too, like guys that start young. But I mean, you guys have been writing music for a while, so
it's an interesting journey because like let's say the first Offside EP, Brotherhood, like I wrote it, like I played on guitar, but I suck, but it was just that like that will to just like, you know, once Hold a Grudge broke up, they were already in this Warzone vibe. But me, I'm like a New Jersey hardcore type of style. Like Floor Punch is my band.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm like, okay, this band broke up. I want to do something like this, you know? So then I just kind of wrote the first 4 songs myself. And then the second EP, I kind of did the same thing. And then the third EP, I kind of like let the other guys take space, but still controlling. But then this one, it's like everyone wrote it together, and it shows, you know?
Yeah.
It really shows, well, can drummers write riffs? Absolutely. But
sure.
I think in any band, it takes like the right chemistry to kind of like open up ideas and like, no, let's try this, let's try that. And, you know, I've always been a drummer in a band, but this is kind of a band I'm leading. So it's like I said, I think now we're starting to hit our zone, and it's been I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Really looking forward to it.
Are you guys planning on doing any videos to accompany the the release or the singles that y'all want to drop?
I don't know. I don't think we're a video band. Like, I don't know. It's
Even
like
a live one would be dope.
Yeah, like I dropped like. I'm not from like the social media age too.
Right.
I was kind of forced to like not forced, but like post something before the show. You know, like kind of promo. You know what I mean? So, but I talked to a lot of like bands. Friends, bands that post a lot, and I'm like, okay, how does Instagram? I just got into Instagram like recently, so it's like, oh, this is this is how it works. Oh, story, it's what? Oh, okay, you can do that. But as for video, I don't know. Probably not. You know, I just kind of guess I'm old school. I don't know. It just doesn't. Maybe after this podcast, it's gonna get me thinking. But
we'll get the wheels turning.
But yeah, definitely want to put out like 2 songs. And just, you know, let people know what we've been up to. You know.
Yeah. Because the last one came out 2020, so.
Came out 2020, and then COVID hit. So
yeah.
I put it out myself on Double Turn Records. I had 300 copies, but I couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But I ended up selling about 200 of them, you know.
Just online?
Online, driving around. There was not much to do during COVID. It was just sometimes you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt with. So I put a post like, okay, I'm driving around Montreal. Send me your addresses and everything. And I spent 2 days just driving, you know, delivering, you know. It was like delivering pizza. They were like, wow, you know what I mean? When nothing was going on. And no, no one's done that, you know what I mean? But sometimes in life, you gotta hustle, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
This one's gonna be put out by Total Rampage, which is cool. It's a new venture starting with Jean-Sébastien Hamel, and no, he's been a fan of the band for a while, and he's like, I want to start a label. I want you to teach me what you know, and it's cool, you know. We'll see where it goes, and we'll definitely have like a lot of plans, activity-wise, shows, and you know, I just finished doing the visas for the U.S., kind of getting ready. Yeah, like we want to, like we've been a band for 8 years, you know. At some point, it's just we've played New Jersey. Like when I played New Jersey, like right before COVID, that was the best Offside show ever. And to me, I'm like, I want more shows like that. There's only a certain limit in Quebec. You know, there's not. Canada's really big, and it's just Hamilton's 10 hours away, and then you got Quebec City, Rimouski. I mean, those were 3 cities on top of my head, but in the East Coast, you know, there's just it's never ending.
Every 3 hours there's a city.
Every 3 hours there's a city. So we're gonna try to do Weekend Warrior stuff. Yeah. And one of my checklist goals actually is to play A7. The A7 at Niagara. I want to I gotta do it once, you know. So hopefully I can maybe get that going, and
yeah,
it's interesting, you know, because it's you gotta have in anything in life you gotta have like some checklists, you know.
Yeah, like a bucket list, not a bucket list, but like
just kind of like, you know, the second Offside, you know, it's Don Fury that did it. You know, it's like Don. I'm like, let me make a record with him. Let me meet the guy. Let me I love hardcore and the culture so much. Let me be in that atmosphere in Troy and just kind of like suck it all in. And just kind of like, it was a great experience. You know, the record was decent. You know, it's not our best material to be honest, but you know, it was just kind of a learning curve. But no, I'm a really big believer of the checklist. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even if it's just for the experience, like doing it to be able to, you know, have that experience, like I think that's important. Even if it's not the best show you ever played, at least you played that show. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I think, a big part of it as a musician. Well, I'm stoked for the new Offside. I know that you had mentioned it to me, like when we talked the first time at Prowl. Who was it? Tito. Tito was like, oh, they got new stuff. What's going on? It was, you know, him and all his
shout out to Tito.
Shout out Tito. Him and all his talkativeness. But yeah, I'm excited to hear it, see it, touch it with my hands.
Nah, it's gonna be gonna be pretty. No, I'm really looking forward to it. It's no. Hardcore's not gonna be disappointed. I put in a lot of work and a lot of It's kind of 3 years in the making. So, hopefully the reaction will be good. Hopefully we'll create some new fans. Hopefully we'll push the band.
Yeah,
we've done like a lot of cool things in the band. Like we went to Europe 3 weeks. We've done a lot of stage shows. We're getting the visas because we had an opportunity to play with Sick of It All.
Yeah.
Then like it didn't work out. So it's like I can't afford that to happen again.
Right.
We played Mexico. Like
that's
it's
cool.
but that wasn't like just So just one of those things. Just to I still have it in me. We have a really good lineup. And kind of hardcore is kind of. Scenes change year per year. 2015 to now is a way different scene. But as we look at the scene today, it's like I can't speak for other cities, but Montreal right now, it's
a hotbed.
It's flying every single cylinder. Like there's so many fucking good bands, and I think having a lot of good bands, it just makes the scene bigger. People get invested more into the scene. I think it's important to have like good bands.
Well, it's like a wave kind of. So like the good bands inspire other people that want to make bands and not one up, but like it just makes people want to do better basically and like bring each other up to the same level. So that's really cool.
I think it's fucking beautiful. I think right now it's never been as the amount of good bands there are right now is fucking beautiful. You know what I mean?
Well, Scott, this has been really fun. Like always, I love talking to you. Talking shit, as Hoya would say. I just have one last question for you before we wrap this up.
Yes.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns? I think I know the answer, but...
My favorite city?
Yeah.
Like in the world?
Well, for coffee and, breakdowns.
Oh, Montreal.
Yeah.
Was that the right answer?
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, it's Montreal. It's Montreal, yeah.
Is it because of all the Tim Hortons?
Yeah, definitely Montreal. Thanks for having me. This was really cool, and looking forward to doing this again. And hopefully, I'll come back with a little more coffee knowledge. Maybe share somewhat of what I discovered.
Yeah, like I said, there's no wrong answers in coffee unless it's like. There are some wrong things to do, but if you're just going out trying different coffees, that's definitely the right thing to do. Find your flavors, just like music. Put a playlist together of coffees. That's it.
That's it.
Well, Scott, thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for letting me hang out in your in your studio space. This has been a lot of fun.
And my pleasure. Thank you very much. It was really, really cool. Let's do this again soon.
Yep.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Scott for hanging out on the podcast. It was so fun to do that in person and share a cup of coffee that I got to make for him. So thanks again. Be sure to check out the new promo 2-song tape from Offside. It's got the hit list on it. It is one hell of a track, so check that shit out. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can also find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.